Dear Andrea, you said you did not like Brendan Burchard's reading of the book, so I've decided that there should be a new reader. Here it goes. Top of page 40, in the middle of a sentence. Remarkable or meaningful contributions. What great thing was ever accomplished without a little recklessness? So-called recklessness was required for the extraordinary to happen. Crossing the oceans, ending slavery, rocketing man into space, building skyscrapers, decoding the genome, starting new businesses, and innovating entire industries. It is reckless to try and say something that has never been done, to move against convention, to begin before all conditions are good and preparations are perfected. But the bold know that to win, one must first begin. They also deeply understand that a degree of risk is inevitable and necessary, should there be any real reward. Yes, any plunge into the unknown is reckless, but that's where the treasure lies. Am I mincing words here? No! This is what high performers worldwide spoke with me about. When you are passionate about what you do, people understand. When you're obsessed, they think you're mad. That's the difference. It is this almost reckless obsession for mastering something that makes us feel the imperative to perform at higher levels in any field of endeavor. Those lacking obsession are often easy to spot. The half-interested browsers, the half-hearted lovers, the half-engaged leaders, they may lack intense interest, passion, or desire in general, but not necessarily. Sometimes they have lots of interests, passion, and desires, but what they lack is one thing: that abiding and unquenchable obsession. You know within minutes of meeting someone whether they have an obsession. If they have it, they're curious, engaged, excited to learn and talk about something specific and deeply important to them. They say things like, I love doing what I do so much, I'm sort of obsessed. Or, I live, eat, and breathe this. I can't imagine doing something else. This is who I am. They speak enthusiastically and articulately of a quest for excellency or mastery in their field, and they log the hours of study, practice, and preparation to achieve those ends. Their obsessions land on their calendars in real work efforts. The moment you know that something has transcended being a passion and has become an obsession is when that something gets tied to your identity. It changes from a desire to feel a particular state of emotion, passion, to a quest to be a particular kind of person. It becomes part of you, something you value more deeply than other things. It becomes necessary for you. Just as some people fear setting high standards for themselves, many fear becoming obsessed. They prefer casual interests and passing flames. It's easier to live with passion that have no stake in who you are. It's worth a reminder, high performers can handle this sort of internal pressure. They don't mind diving into the deep end of their passions. Obsession is not something to fear. Quite the contrary, it's almost like a badge of honor. When people are obsessed with something, they enjoy doing it so much that they don't feel the need to apologize to it for others. They lose hours working on a task or improving a skill, and they love it. Are they unhealthy obsessions? I suppose that depends on how you define things. If you get so enthralled by something that you become addicted or think about it compulsively, then yes, that's not exactly healthy. If you define an obsession as a persistent, disturbing preoccupation, as Merriam-Webster does, for one sense of the word, then yes, taking it to the degree of disturbing is probably unhealthy. But the dictionary also defines obsession in these ways: a state in which someone thinks about someone or something constantly or frequently, especially in a way that is not normal. Well, that sounds like a stalker film waiting to happen with your project. That's not in the book, the last 3 lines. Someone or something that a person thinks about constantly or frequently, Oh, Kyle is very cute. An activity that someone is very interested in or spends a lot of time doing. A persistent, abnormal, strong interest in or concern about someone or something. I don't find any of those senses of the word particularly unhealthy. So again, it depends on the definition you choose. What I know about high performers is that they do indeed spend an enormous amount of time thinking about and doing their obsessions. Is this abnormal? Absolutely. But normal isn't always healthy either. Who would have thought? Let's be honest. A normal amount of time spent on almost anything in today's distracted world is about 2 minutes. So you should be able to do 5 minutes of this book a day. So if an abnormal amount of focus is unhealthy, then high performers are guilty as charged. But I don't observe high performers as being unhealthy, and I spend more time observing them than just about anyone else does. If you're wondering whether you have an unhealthy obsession, it's pretty easy to figure out. When your obsession starts running you instead of you running it, if it starts tearing up your life and wrecking your relationships and causing unhappiness all around, then you've got a problem. But that's just not a problem high performers have. Otherwise, by definition, they wouldn't be high performers. The data bears this out. High performers are happy. They are confident. They eat healthy amounts of healthy food and they exercise. They handle stress better than their peers. They love challenge in the sense that they're making a difference. In other words, you could say they're in control. That's why I encourage people to keep experimenting in life until they find something that sparks unusual interest. Then, if it aligns with your personal values and identity, jump in. Get curious. Let yourself geek out on something and go deep. Let that part of you that wants to obsess about and master something come alive again. When high personal standards meet high obsessions, then high necessity emerges. So too does high performance. And that's just the internal game of necessity. The external forces are where things really get interesting. Before we move on to the external forces, spend some time reflecting on the following statements. The values that are important for me to live include: a recent situation where I didn't live my values was: the reason I didn't feel it necessary in that moment to live my value is: a recent situation in which I was proud of living my values or being a particular kind of person was: the reason I felt it necessary to be that kind of person then was: the topics I find myself obsessed with include: a topic I haven't been obsessing about enough in a healthy way is: external forces. You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice. An external force of necessity is in any outside factor that drives you to perform well. Some psychologists might simply describe this as pressure. I rarely use the term pressure, though, because it carries a lot of negative connotations. Who would have thought? For the most part, high performers don't feel ongoing, unwanted pressure causing their drive for excellence. Like all of us, they have obligations and deadlines, but the distinction is that they consciously choose those duties and thus don't see them as negative pressures to perform. They're not pushed to perform, they're pulled. I used to get this wrong in one of our pilot studies for the high performance indicator. We asked people to score whether they agreed strongly with this statement. I feel an external demand from my peers, family, boss, mentor, or culture to succeed at high levels. To my initial surprise, the statement didn't correlate with high performance. In asking high performers about this result, I learned that the reason is because the demands they sense to succeed do not come from other people. If they do feel pressure from others in a way that makes them perform better, it likely just reinforces choices or behaviors they may already have committed to. Another way of saying this is that high performers don't necessarily view external forces as negative things or as casual reasons for their performance. This means that high performers are not functioning from what psychologists call reactants, which are acts motivated by the will to fight back or act against a perceived insult or threat. High performers' necessity for action life does not stem from wanting to fight the system or reverse putting them down. High performers aren't driven because they're rebelling or feeling threatened. That type of negative motivation certainly exists, but alone it rarely lasts long or accomplishes much. More often, high performers view positive external forces as casual reasons for increased performance. They want to do well to serve a purpose they find meaningful. Fulfilling a high purpose serves as a positive sort of pressure. Even obligations and difficult-to-meet deadlines, which many people dislike, are viewed as positive performance enhancers. With this in mind, there are two primary positive external forces that exert the kind of motivation or pressure that improves performance: social duty, obligation, and purpose. Duty makes us do things well, but love makes us do them beautifully. Philip Brooks. High performers often feel the necessity to perform well out of a sense of duty to someone or something beyond themselves. Someone is counting on them, or they're trying to fulfill a promise or responsibility. I define duty broadly because high performers do, too, sometimes when they speak of duty. They mean that they owe something to others or are accountable for their performance, whether or not anyone asks for the thing they feel obligated to do. Sometimes high performers view duty as an obligation to meet another's expectations or needs. Sometimes they see duty as complying with the norms or values of a group or following a moral sense of right and wrong. The duties that derive performance can be explained best by the truth that we will often do more for others than for ourselves. We'll get in the middle of the night to calm an upset child even though we know we need sleep. It's just more necessary in our mind to do this thing for someone else. This type of necessity is often the strongest pull. So if you ever feel you're not performing well, start asking, who needs me more right now? Hey Andrea, I hope you liked it. It was for you.